Hey everybody, welcome to the BYOQ live stream. Bring your own questions. I didn't want to call it Q&A. I wanted to call it something different. It's good to see you all here. I see One Vision Aerial, Brandon Beans, Fun Per Volt FPV, Borked Magic Carpet Ride, and Nicholas Lynch. Thank you all for being here right at the beginning. And Brandon Beans already with the questions, because it is the BYOQ live stream. So yeah, Brandon, we will get to that one in just a second. It looks like you have had some real issues with that Odinata there, buddy. Yeah. Anyway, welcome to the stream, everyone. What is up, Nicholas Lynch? Mouse of Madness. He's going to build a pork chop. Congrats, Mouse of Madness. The pork chop is a great little build. It is a great little build. I find myself building a whole lot of micros lately. I don't know why that is. I've got another one on the bench. I posted this on my community page. This is the little one from Unger CNC. It's a 2-inch. I just find myself in possession of a whole lot of micros lately. What's up, Erie 509 FPV? Just driving. You are here too, but just driving. Yeah, I don't want to know how that is possible. Hopefully someone else is driving, you're riding, and you are watching this from something in a fixed area where you're not controlling a motor vehicle. I'm going to assume that is the case. All right, so Brandon Beans had the first question right out of the gate. So let's go ahead and take a look at what Brandon Beans is saying. All right, his Odinata this weekend gave up a ESC, single motor, constant losing power, 5 seconds into flight, and it falls. New AIO plus motors doing the same thing, but new motor, no screws touching. He also says that he put it back on BLheli32 from Blue Jay. It was working great for weeks prior to this. Turn off RPM filtering and the drone arms and spins in Betaflight without him asking. Yeah, luckily, like he said in the last one, luckily it is a Nano. So, man, without you asking, they spin in Betaflight. You're losing one motor consistently. You had changed the AIO. And every time. And you changed firmware. And it was flying previously. That is really, really odd. There's not a lot else that you could change up there. If you change the AIO, did you reflash the configuration, though? That would be the question I have. Did you flash the same configuration after changing the AIO? You disabled RPM filtering, and it seems fine again. And you know what? I'm gonna chalk this one up to something. I have heard quite a few times in the last 2 or 3 weeks that disabling RPM filtering on small quads in Betaflight 4.4 seems to fix some problems. RPM filtering, for some reason, is causing problems for some quads in Betaflight 4.4, and I haven't been able to pin exactly why that is, but you are not alone, my friend. I have seen that happen quite a few times on the Discord, where people have turned off RPM filtering and the quad stopped doing the funny things that it was doing with RPM filtering on. So I would say that, yeah, leave the RPM filtering off. Luckily on a micro quad, it's not as critical to have the RPM filtering because you shouldn't have super, super low frequency vibrations anyway, unless you're just getting a whole lot of shakes. And then alternatively, what I would also say you should try is a firmware like Quicksilver. I have found Quicksilver to do a very good job on small quads. It's not as feature rich. It's a little bit different to set up, but it does a really, really good on small quads. Really, really good job. I'm not sure why it would fly for several weeks and then not fly right anymore with RPM filtering, unless for some reason you have a cracked arm, maybe. But you would know that pretty immediately, with a micro especially. So really, really strange, man. Really, really strange. Let me catch up with what Brandon's saying about it. Welcome, Brundlefly, Rotor Geek. Yeah, having the thing arm itself was freaky, Brandon says. Yes. Yeah, and Brandon agrees. Seems like you found a bug. I think there's a problem with RPM filtering, and it may be within some kind of bounds of frame resonance or motor resonance. And maybe from flying after a few weeks, your arm has weakened in a way that you can't see, and RPM filtering does freak out. So, yeah. All right, Nicholas Lynch, could you recommend any cheap goggles? I've ordered the Eachine EV800D, but shipping is taking too long. I think I might switch. The EVC and EV800D are actually like my go-to recommendation for cheap goggles. I have a set. They are very, very good for the price. They are only 640 by 480, so they're not huge resolution, but they do have a diversity receiver, and they do a really good job for a set of box goggles. They really do. Now, if for some reason you just can't get those, you feel like you're never going to get them in, then I might recommend, but cheap is the hard part. I'm not sure what the Emax transporters are going for. Let me look. Let me look at the transporters. They are going for $98, which I feel might be a little bit expensive for what they are. But the EV800Ds or DMs are by far my bet for cheap ones. Yeah. Yeah, Brandon says he's going to try Quicksilver. My buddy's been pushing it to me. I tried Quicksilver on the little 65 millimeter that I had problems with, and although it didn't get rid of everything, it did do a lot better. So there's clearly still a problem with the gyro, but Quicksilver seems to be a lot more forgiving with the filtering than what Betaflight is, probably because it's more geared toward the small quads. And I mean, you can fly big quads on Quicksilver too. That's not impossible, but yeah, it seems to do a little bit better with the filtering. What's up, Levi Hayes? Says, I just got a SkyZone 020, and when I tune into the exact channel, I get horrible artifacts, and it only has these when using the right antenna, but when I tune to a frequency slightly off, it goes away. I assume you're using the built-in, for the 020, it has a built-in module. I don't know if there are any firmware updates for that, but it sounds like maybe the antennas are slightly tuned funny on it. Are they your first set of goggles, or is that a new set of goggles to you, but you have another set? Because I'd be really interested to see how the same things act on a different set of goggles. It's possible, it's not impossible that there's a problem with the antenna tuning. And how far off are you having to set it to get it right? It would be unlikely that there's a problem with the antenna tuning. I haven't seen any SkyZones do that, but it's not impossible. So. All right, welcome in Cloud to Ground FPV. Brundlefly. Thanks for the video on Darwin AIO losing gyro. F that AIO. I love that AIO, man. That's exactly what I'm going to put in this. That exact AIO. And I have it Odonata in my drawer. Ugh, with the camera hanging out. That is the one that I put the AIO in from the video with a Walksnail 1S in it. I'm still working on that. I haven't been able to print the parts, but I mean, I think Darwin should probably figure out how to get their own targets for their boards so that when they change the gyro, they don't have a problem. But yeah. Brundlefly also says the Cobra S or X. Those are terrific. The Cobra X especially. I don't know what the Cobra S is going for. Let's see what the Cobra S is going for here. That is a SkyZone Cobra S. Not X. The X is too expensive. That's $249. The S is, it looks like 169, but it is 1280 by 720. But it's only going to be 680 by 460 for 800 by 480. Okay, so a little bit more resolution, but the module in this right here, the SteadyBee module, is going to be a lot better than what you get in the ESCs. By far better than what you get in the ESCs. So if you're willing to spend a little bit more money, those are significantly better goggles. So, welcome in Mason Nordman. How is the HDZero 65mm build going? Yeah, the HDZero 65mm is the one that I put Quicksilver on, and it's better. I still have like 60% of the jitter in it on the roll axis. I think it was the roll or the pitch axis. I have 60% of the jitter still. It's a little bit better, but that's just really Quicksilver's ability to filter it out. And I could probably do that in Betaflight too if I wanted to make the quad really lazy. But for some reason, Quicksilver flies pretty responsively for having such good filtering. I'm definitely going to keep playing with Quicksilver, and it's probably going to wind up on this 2-inch that I'm building, just because I did have a really good experience with it on that 65mm. So I was happy with Quicksilver, but That 65 millimeter is not quite there yet. I'm going to probably just have to pick a whole different brand of AIO and put maybe like a Happy Model X12 in it before it does anything right. So Levi Hayes, it's his first set of goggles for the O2Os. I have another pair. Yeah, there could be something actually wrong with those goggles if you're having to tune it to a channel manually outside of the normal channel bands. And I assume by manually, you don't mean you're like setting it to R8. You're actually setting it to a frequency, which you shouldn't have to do. You should be able to set it to the band and channel, and it go to that band and channel as a standard. Also, is it just happening with one quad, or is it with all of your quads, or do you have multiple quads? Because it could be also something with the VTX. If you put a VTX table in there that has slightly off frequencies, I don't know where you might have got it, that could do the thing too. But if it's doing it with multiple quads, I would definitely point at an issue with the goggles for sure. Marcel off axis, I found some beans and some bacon. Now I just need some bread. Yeah, bread, but if you're gonna go for bread with beans and bacon, you have to go for cornbread, because this is the South where I am, and we love our cornbread. And our cornbread is sweet, mind you. If you've ever had cornbread that's not sweet, it wasn't Southern. Sweet cornbread's a totally different thing. It's like biting into cake. It's really good. It's horrible for you. But when you're eating barbecue, like brisket, then sweet cornbread is the way. Sweet cornbread's awesome. Birdfam FPV, why is my drone twitching only when I turn right? It almost freaks out only going right. Any idea? So if it's only freaking out when you're going right, it's more than likely a motor. Because when you are yawing, and I assume you mean turning right as in yawing, when you are yawing, you are speeding up and slowing down two motors to get the torque to turn you. And it's possible that one of the motors you're having to speed up or slow down is having a problem maintaining RPM in that current. If it's having a problem speeding up or slowing down, it wouldn't be so noticeable in other axes, but it would be very noticeable in the yaw axis, because that is the only axis that is controlled by torque. So it's possible you're having a motor issue. What I would try is I would try swapping two of your motors. So when you yaw, you have two motors going each direction. I would swap one motor that's spinning in each direction and try it again and see if you have the same problem. If it's still turning the same direction, swap the other two motors and see if it's still having a problem in the same direction. It could also be something with the gyro, but the gyro is usually a tick. It's a tick issue. In fact, in that intro footage, if you were here for the intro footage, the quad that I'm flying is the Beast build, and the gyro in this currently has a problem. So it twitches pretty badly on the yaw axis because I've got a gyro that's dying on that board. But it wouldn't be just totally loss of control. Some other things it could be is resonance. It could be an issue with the resonance, but you would probably notice that in other places than just the yaw axis. But if you have a black box log of it, go over to the Discord server and into the troubleshooting section and drop that, and I wouldn't mind looking at it for you. So, what's up, 8-bit? How's it going? Newt McFly. All right. Let's see. Let's see here. More cues. More cues for the BYOQ. I do not, Marcel. I do not have a character logo yet. I'm kind of terrified to have a character logo made of me. I do have some really, really cool artwork that was done by Radbeard FPV. He did a really, really good job of digitizing me, and I told him I was going to make a shirt out of it, and I have never gotten around to making a shirt out of it, and I really need to do that. But like one of those ones you see all the time with like the FPV goggles on and I'm caricatured, I haven't done that. I'm kind of afraid that if I do that, it won't fit on anything because I would be a very large caricature. It's mostly just hair. If you just draw like a ball of hair, that's my caricature. So, Rotor Geek. It would be nice if the black box logging worked correctly out of the box on the Darwin F4 FCs. It would be. Now, I don't know if you saw in the Discord, we actually had a whole chat about this with somebody. On the F405 V3, if you don't know, it has some issues with black box logging. So you log to an SD card, and a lot of times, even if you can get the SD card to show the full amount, the 4 gigs of storage that it's supposed to show, you go to log and it leaves a lot of gaps in the log. Tons and tons of gaps in the log in Betaflight 4.4. That is actually, it turns out to be an issue with something on how the pin that does the black box logging off of the MCU is shared with the OSD chip. And it makes that bus busy, sporadically busy, so it doesn't log correctly. And if you turn the OSD off, then it does log correctly. There's actually a Betaflight issue in the works right now. I haven't seen any resolution to it, but there is an issue logged with Betaflight on the problem, so I'm hoping they fix it. I'm really hoping they find a way to make that bus not busy whenever it's sending out data for OSD. So we'll hope for the best there. All right. All right. Who else has come in since there? Welcome in Ohm FPV. Ohm. Good to see you, Ohm. Trying to keep up with all the comments here. If I miss your comments, I am very sorry. I have heard a few times that I have missed questions and comments. It is really hard on this end to see them all. It really, really is. I will try my best to get to them all. Yeah, Levi, he says he only has one working quad. Yeah, that's the hard part. So it totally could be the quad. It could be the VTX table in the quad having the wrong settings for the frequency, and whenever you set it to that channel on the quad, it's actually setting the VTX to the wrong frequency, which is why your goggles aren't picking it up. It would be really rare that it's a goggles problem, really, really rare. Not impossible, but really, really rare. I would say if you would be so kind as to send a screenshot of that to me on Discord, I will double check the frequency layout of that for the channels and let me know what frequency you are flying on, which channel and band you're flying on, and I will double check it for you because it could just be that it's off by a couple of digits in the VTX table. I have seen that happen before. All right. Mouse of Madness, sweet cornbread and iced tea. That's more sugar than tea. Yeah, you know what though? Okay, so honesty time. I love sweet cornbread. I hate sweet tea. I hate it. I hate sweet tea. I can't do it. Unsweet tea all the time. I will drink unsweet tea like water. Sweet tea I can't do. I just can't do it. I mean, I drink a couple of Cokes a day usually, and these are diet Cokes. I actually went for a long time with no sugar. Now I'm going to drink this because I'm thirsty. But sweet tea, can't do it. My wife loves sweet tea though. She drinks a ton of that, but I can't do sweet tea. I just can't do it. Marcel, I am French Canadian and I will still agree on cornbread. Cornbread is awesome. I can make a really good cornbread too. I'm pretty decent. You can't grow up in Texas without learning how to make cornbread, brisket, steak. You have to learn how to cook steak to live here. Basically, it's a requirement. In order to get your Texas driver's license, you must know how to properly cook meat and cornbread. Basically, that's how it works. Sin FPV, yes, there are other kinds of cornbread. There are other kinds. There's actually, my wife makes this cornbread that has cheese and peppers in it too. I don't like peppers, so she does that with her cornbread, but I make sweet cornbread because it's a Southern thing. Robert Finkelson, is this a weekly live stream? No, it is not a weekly live stream. It is bi-weekly, just because my schedule is crazy and I can only ever do bi-weekly, and I will sprinkle in some weekends eventually so that people in other time zones can catch on. But I feel like bi-weekly kind of gives me time to think about what we're going to talk about and actually schedule some stuff. And at some point I want to bring on guests and do some special stuff. And having it set for every other week will be helpful in that. So I don't do it weekly, and I don't want to stomp on anybody else's live streams, which happen every week for a lot of people. So I just kind of pick this time bi-weekly. Dredger, I don't turn right. I only know how to turn left. Is that, I can't remember, is that the same direction as a NASCAR or the opposite direction of a NASCAR? Definitely tells you something. You can only turn left. If you've watched my flying, I can only turn left too. Jiffy cornbread or GTFO? Jiffy is good. Jiffy is good cornbread. I'm trying to remember. I think that's the one in the blue box, right? The blue and white box. And that's what I make too. If that is, that's what I use. Yep. For show. Welcome in King Keck the channel and Michael Truth. Michael, I just ordered the HDZero goggles freestyle bundle. What are the chances I get it this year? Okay. That's I like how you put that question. I really do. I think that you have a high chance of getting it this year. There are no promises, obviously, but I think you have a really high chance of getting it this year. I will be very, very surprised if by fall we don't see the HDZero goggles in retailers. I mean, they got a bunch of pre-orders. I think they're going to catch up, and I think they're going to start shipping to retailers like they originally had planned until they did the whole thing where they sold it through the store directly. I think that by fall we'll see that, though. I really, really hope so, but there's a very good chance that you will get yours this year. Very, very good chance. Let's see here. Who has the next BYOQ? Who has them? Okay, new McFly. How do you set up a logical switch to play a warning when RSSI DBM or LQ thresholds are reached? There are two ways. There are two ways to do that. So RSSI, your radio actually, if you have telemetry enabled, is already basically looking at RSSI. So you can set your RSSI thresholds in there, and it will play a sound if you want it to, but you do have to attach the sound to it. So there is a place you can go in the radio, and I can pull up some more information and send this to you. There is a place you can go in the radio and set the tone for RSSI low, and then you can set the RSSI low threshold. LQ is a little bit different. You can totally do it with some logical switches, and basically you have a logical switch activate at a certain LQ level, and you can have that LQ level activate playing a sound on your radio. It is not overly complicated, but I am actually going to make a video about it very soon because it would be really hard to show you on the live stream, but it's totally doable. Essentially, it's with logical switches if you're talking about LQ. RSSI already has some built-in stuff because if you've ever flown FR Sky, I promise you've heard your radio say RSSI low a bunch of times. Like as soon as you left your feet, it said RSSI low. You can change those thresholds in the radio, but LQ, definitely logical switches, it totally can be done. What's up, FPV? Have you got the O3 OSD working with rooted V2 goggles? Yes. Both of my O3s, because I only own two O3s, in fact, the Squad O3, works with my rooted V2 goggles. Definitely does. And my rooted V2 goggles, obviously I have WTFOS on there, because why else would you root them? And it does work. Are you having a problem with yours that you can't get the OSD to work for some reason? It should work totally natively. Now, on the Vistas, it works with WTFOS, and if you have the Goggles 2 or the Integra, Goggles Integra, I said in the description the Integra would come up at some point, then you can get the full OSD natively without the hack. But yeah, V2s, I have OSD working on the O3 and the Vistas. Fun per volt FPV, hot and cold, expansion and contraction, and some time fixes gyros. That's why I haven't swapped it out on that one. Because I have a feeling that next time I get into like a crash or flying it in the summertime when it's warm out, it's totally going to fix itself. So I haven't bought a new flight controller to fix it because it doesn't bother me that much. And I figure that at some point it's either going to totally die or it's going to go back to working correctly. So. All right, let's see here. There's so many questions. The BYOQ is full. All right, Ryan Bliss has the next BYOQ. Somewhere I can buy replacement 1.5 millimeter motor shafts with E-clip grooves. My tiny 8 motors snap like twigs. Tried to make my own, but have a hard time cutting a groove for the clip. I don't know that I've ever seen you be able to buy just the shaft. I don't know that I've ever seen that. Typically, you have to buy a whole motor. And what I would say is that on the Tiny Apes, you're probably going to want to switch the motors. You're probably going to want to. I put the RCM powers on mine. The hard part about switching motors on the Tiny Apes is that the holds don't line up correctly. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do with my Tiny Ape, because I have the 1202.5s on mine right now, which are way too big of motors. This little 2-inch frame, I'm going to gut my Tiny Ape and I'm going to put it on this. And this 2-inch frame, if you can see that in the camera, has the 4-hole mounting pattern for regular motors. So I'm going to ditch my Tiny Ape Freestyles frame, because I just don't like the idea that everything only works with their stuff most of the time. So they do that because it's cheap. And those motors they snap like crazy. Yeah, Rotor Geek says he's following that Betaflight fix for the SpeedyBee F405 V3. I think it's more than just the SpeedyBee. I think it's most SD card logging, actually. And you bought an open logger. I have never bought an open logger. I heard that they were going to be unsupported, though, pretty soon. I mean, they're still supported now. But I heard that open logger wasn't going to hang around too much longer. Robert Finkelson, I can't get my telemetry for my Crossfire online on my DJI goggles too. Telemetry for the Crossfire. So you can't get your like your LQ numbers on your goggles too? Is that what you're saying? You can't get the LQ numbers on there? If you enable the custom OSD and you set up Betaflight to use MSP OSD, you should be able to put any field you want from Betaflight in the same way you would with analog. So in the OSD tab, you can drag all the fields around and select which fields you want displayed. And you should be able to get the RSSI and the LQ in there, but you have to set up the whole MSP OSD to do that. Have you set up MSP OSD already on yours, or are you running the regular fields without the MSP OSD? Levi Hayes says he looked at the table, it's all good, and yes, you totally can email me or message me a video. If you just hit me up on Discord, I'm just Bacon Ninja over there, or go to the Discord, yeah, the server. That's it. It's in the description below. If you go to that and join it in the troubleshooting section, I will definitely catch up on that later after the stream if you want to drop it in there. Yes, I am doing the live streams. Has been a patron for a long time. Thank you very much, I always enjoy seeing you about. AJ SR71 jalapeno cornbread is the bomb. I just don't like chunks in my cornbread. Like chunks of I don't like chunks of stuff in my cornbread, man. I can't do it. I just can't do it. Sweet cornbread, yes. I can't do chunks of peppers in my cornbread. I don't know what that's about. Jonathan Jonas, I get a weird motor ringing at idle speeds. I assume something to do with the dynamic idle. It almost sounds like excessive D-term noise, but my graphs show none. Ringing. Do you mean like prop sound, or do you mean like tin cans? Because if you mean tin cans, I have noticed that with certain motors after certain amounts of time, and what that actually is the bearing races in your motors wearing out, or just getting dry because they're packed from the factory and sealed. And it sounds like tin cans pinging around in there. Now, if you mean prop noise and you're not seeing anything on your logs, it could be dynamic idle. It could be that you just have it in a zone where it doesn't like it. And what I would try for that is set dynamic idle back to off and go back to the standard 5% in the motors tab and see if you hear the same thing. But if it is the tin can pinging noise, that's your bearings, which some motors are good about and some motors are bad about. My Xing motors, never hear it. A lot of other motors I hear tin can pinging after like 30 packs on them. So, all right. King Kick the channel. What is the purpose of the two capacitors versus using just one with the Quadmulas? Because I use one and one quad and two on the other. Identical VTX and antennas, I can tell no difference. Yeah, so there's not a whole lot of difference. Really, the only thing you're doing by adding two capacitors, depending on how you're wiring them up, because there are ways to wire them up differently, the only thing you are doing is adding more capacitance. So they give you two shorter capacitors that are lower capacity capacitor capacity, so that you don't have to have one of those big honking 1000 or 1500s. So I think they give us like something in the 600 range, and they give us two of them. And if you wire them in parallel, they're supposed to add up to a certain amount. Now, you can get away with just one, and some people get away with none. I don't recommend none. It's just a safety precaution. Most of the time, you're not going to blow anything up by not having a cap, but it is not good for some things, and you won't know till it happens. So always run a cap, but you as a pilot will not be able to tell the difference, especially if you're running a digital VTX, because you won't get the same kind of noise in the video feed that you might get if you're running an analog VTX and no cap. So you won't really be able to tell. I put 2 in my Siren F5, and I put 1 in my Siren F5 split. So I decided to just go to a single and not worry about it so much. Mark Zero loves grits and tea, but sweet tea is pretty bad. Sweet tea is pretty bad. And I don't like grits either, man. So yet another Bacon Ninja secret. I worked for the state prison system for a while, and they serve grits. And the grits there, if you could like bounce quarters off the grits they serve. They're like made of rubber, and it ruined grits for me. Because they'd bring breakfast by occasionally, because you know we can't really leave when we're working in a prison. And the prison grits were just awful, terrible grits. It totally killed them for me. All right. Marcel off axis. This poor guy will never catch up on chat. Yeah, that's how I feel. I'm going as fast as I can, Marcel. I'm going as fast as I can. Rotor Geek 13. My favorite hot sauce. My favorite hot sauce. It's going to be super cliche, but my favorite hot sauce is Frank's Red Hot. I put it on all white meat. Pork chops, chicken, all of that, Frank's Red Hot. If I'm doing not white meat, I leave it off. But I use a lot of Frank's Red Hot. I totally do. One Vision Aerial. Got an old USAQ QAV 210 sitting here. What would you suggest for a build to get up in the air? Well, let's see. Let's look at the QAV 210, because I don't remember what one of those looks like. Is that the right tab? Am I in the right tab? I looked at something in totally the wrong tab, and you guys didn't even see it. I'm only sharing one tab. Nah. Okay. QAV 210. Let's look at the QAV 210. Man, that is a classic, buddy. That is a classic. I mean, it's a school bus frame. You could basically do anything you want with it. The downside being, obviously, I guess the 210 and the 180 both have a solid bottom plate, it looks like, because I see a solid bottom plate on this one. So I'm assuming they both have a solid bottom plate. Let's see. What would I build on that? What would I do with a QAV 210? I would put probably... I don't know. I wouldn't put a whole lot of motor on it. I'd probably put some Emax Ecos on there, or maybe some Xing E's. Just, you know, for cheapness, I would probably run a SpeedyBee F405 in it. I would probably try to shove a Vista in the back. Depends on if you're in digital. Try to shove a Vista in the back. It'd probably wind up looking similar to my budget build. I just wouldn't build anything super nice on that old of a frame. But if you want to get something in the air, the stuff that's on my budget build is relatively cheap. Without the frame, you can still do it for like $220 out the door and get it flying. And if you want to do it digital, obviously it'd be a little bit more. But I would go somewhere like that with it probably, and wouldn't invest a whole ton of money in it. And I would just plow the crap out of it until it was no longer in existence. That's kind of where I'd go with it. All right. Catching up on chat. I'm trying to catch up on chat. All right. Finding the next Q for the BYOQ. Let's see here. Everybody's talking about Jiffy cornbread. We're on a cornbread kick now. Oh, man. We're all on the cornbread kick. Ooh. One Vision Aerial talking to King Kick. I love cornbread and jalapenos, but I never had them together. Make it your midnight snack. That might be a rough midnight. If you start eating jalapeno cornbread at midnight, you're probably going to be up a while with that indigestion. That might be rough. It might be real rough. Borked all of my whoops RSSI low over and over. Yeah, your whoops must be FR Sky D8. I'm just gonna go ahead and assume you're running FR Sky D8 on your whoops, because that is the king of RSSI. I learned to totally ignore the RSSI warning when I was flying FR Sky. I have a couple of quads still with FR Sky in it. The RSSI warning means nothing to me with those. I don't think they're gonna fall out of the air until they fall out of the air. That's my warning when it starts to fall out of the air. New McFly, yeah. Keep an eye out for that video. It'll probably be a couple of weeks. If you need help sooner than that, though, hit me up on Discord and we can work through it together. I can set one up on my radio and then take some pictures for you, because that's what I'm going to do for the video anyway. But my production schedule with videos is taking a long time. So yeah, but if you want to hit me up on the Discord, though, I'll totally help you work through it with some photos out of my radio. Not a big deal. Mouse of Madness. For those of us trying to stay under 250 grams, what would you recommend for a build that's close to 5-inch, close to the experience of a 5-inch drone? Maybe something that can carry a camera like the Runcam 5. What's your budget, Mouse of Madness? How mad is your mouse? What's your budget? There's a lot you can do for a 5-inch feel. If you want a 5-inch feel in a small quad, what the real thing you have to do is get the weight to thrust ratio, or thrust to weight, depending on how you want to say it, ratio closer to what a 5-inch is. So on small quads, especially when we're talking about toothpicks that are under 250 grams, we usually have this gigantic amount of thrust. We can make a gigantic amount of thrust with small props and highly efficient motors at higher KVs. But what we can't do is add weight to the quad, because that's not a dynamic thing that we can control. But we can build it with weight in the quad, which is why I built the Beast build. I built this specifically to be heavier than most 3-inch quads, to be heavier and have more torque response than most 3-inch quads have, while being able to also handle freestyle with a decent frame and shorter motors that wouldn't bend shafts as easily. That's kind of where I went with my, I want to be like a 5-inch, but not in a 5-inch. And you can totally do that in under 250 grams. The problem is going to be that as you make it lighter, it feels less and less like a 5-inch quad. So if you're going to make it lighter or make a build in the 3 or 3.5-inch zone that's lighter, what you're going to want to do is run less thrust, and it's going to feel more like a 5-inch quad. As far as 250 grams and you want to carry a camera like the Runcam 5 Orange, I mean, when you get down to being really serious about the 250 gram limit and 5-inch freestyle, I don't think anything compares to the Umagod 250. If you build an Umagod 250 to spec or buy one from Tommy Tabahia pre-built, I don't think you're going to be displeased. The problem is going to be running cameras. One reason why that has a DJI O3 in it is because I just can't justify putting more weight on it. Even at the thrust to weight ratio, at the size. So I put a DJI O3 in it so that I could use that for the footage. And one alternative to that, I would say, I mean, the Runcam 5 Orange does shoot in 4K, which the O3 can do. But if you don't care so much about the 4K, Walksnail's internal storage is actually pretty good. If you're not going to color grade it, if you're not going to use it for super high production shots, I'll tap my mic there, then the internal storage on the Walksnail system is pretty good. So you might consider putting something like that in it and saving a little money. But I don't know about running a camera on top of any of them, really. That's going to put you kind of over the weight class, more than likely, with a decent sized battery. All right. Let's see here. Jonathan Jonas can design a shaft for you and have the machine. If you're interested, shoot me a message. That's cool, man. That's totally cool. I think that if you design a shaft for it, for Ryan, and you list it somewhere, you're probably somewhere than just to Ryan. I know a ton of people who have totally destroyed the shafts for their tiny apes. So, yeah. I would, if you're going to do that for him, I think you could totally probably sell those other people. So I'd let other people know too. All right, hush your mouth. Stupid question. You think a 2-inch Caddx a good idea? I assume you mean Caddx Vista on a 2-inch quad. No, I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's too heavy. I mean, you could run a naked Vista, which if you're willing to take the durability loss of a naked Vista, totally cool. But at 2 inches, the disc loading for that kind of weight is going to make it fly badly. It's going to fly like a brick. I have that problem even with lighter digital VTXs with Walk Snail and HDZero and some of my analog VTXs, when they get up into higher power ranges, my builds wind up heavier, and it's a fine line to being a flying brick and not being fun to fly. So I think anything under 3 inches, 3 inches is cutting it close. Anything under 3.5 inches for sure, running a Vista is going to probably be really hard to pull off and do well. Unless you're just doing something crazy. But if all you want to do is cruise with it, it can be done. It's just not going to be very agile. So, Magic Carpet Ride. What 3D printer you recommend? Okay, so I would say that people are going to hate me for this. They're really going to hate me for what I'm going to say on it. Hold on a second. Let me switch my screen because we're going to go look at something else. And I'll make sure I'm on the right tab this time. All right. We're going to go look at Creality printers. People are going to knock me for liking a Creality printer. But Creality has a really good lineup of printers. So they have the Ender 3 S1 Pro, which is a little bit more expensive at $429. The S1, which is not direct drive. I don't think this is direct drive, but this is $300. Let's look. Let's look at the head. No, it is direct drive. That's direct drive for $300, $303 for an Ender 3 S1. And direct drive is pretty useful whenever we're talking about TPU. Let's see. They have even cheaper ones. The Ender 3 V2, that one's not direct drive. Yeah, Ender 3 V2 is not direct drive, so I would spend a little more for the S1. I looked at the Ender 3 Max Neo at $295. This one is again not direct drive, but it is pretty inexpensive. But for $300, I mean, for $300, you really can't go wrong with the Ender 3 S1 with direct drive. You could go and get something from Soval, or you could get something from Prusa, and you're probably going to have more consistently better prints, for sure. But for $300, you can't really go wrong with the S1. All right. More about it. Let's see. More questions. I've almost caught up. All right. Is all AOS 3.5 carbon created equal? Does all the cut carbon come from the same manufacturer no matter where you buy it? Tired of D-lamps in the arms. Bought from CNC Madness. No, it's not. So I've heard a lot about the CNC Madness ones, that the carbon quality was not good. And I want to say that the CNC Madness ones, the CNC Madness was cutting AOS frames before Chris Rosser really was pushing the AOS carbon, I believe. And it could be possible that wherever CNC Madness was getting that layup, because all AOS carbon is a specific layup of carbon. So you can order that carbon from any manufacturer that's willing to manufacture your sheets in that specified layup. It's not even really a patented or trademarked thing. It's just AOS carbon. That's the layup of the carbon. So wherever CNC Madness was sourcing their carbon was not good. A lot of people had problems with the CNC Madness carbon. I believe iFlight is cutting them now, and I would expect iFlight's carbon quality to be better and more consistent as they are a larger company and they can make larger orders and probably have better deals with better manufacturers. So the new ones that you can get that are not cut by CNC Madness, that are iFlight cut, you buy them at the normal retail stores, are probably going to be a lot better for D-Lams. So yes, it is a little bit different. Absolutely. All right. Let's see. Oh man, I thought I was done with the comments and then it loaded a new page. I am never going to catch up with the comments. Batteries not included. Just wanted to say thanks again for your help with the O3 settings. Have a great night, fellow pilots. Keep it in the air. Thank you very much, batteries not included. I'm glad that your O3 stuff got worked out. Very glad. All right. Ghost FPV. What is the best patch antenna for DJI goggles? TBS, VAS, or True RC? If you're talking about the DJI Goggles V2, which I assume you are because the other goggles have a hard time having exterior antennas, there are a couple different variations that you can get for patches. Now, you can buy the True RC that go on the side. If you've ever seen Let's Fly RC fly them, they're the Xair 2s that go on the side of the DJI goggles. Those are very, very good. However, I have a personal preference for things that don't stick off the goggles on the V2s because they're just so big. So I run the iFlight Crystal, which is a really good patch. A lot of people also run the Axie patch, the built-in patch on the front for the Axies. That's a good patch. I have seen some people running the Molnir system, which if you haven't heard of that, the Maple Wireless Molnir, it's a 4-antenna system where you don't have a patch, but they say it works really, really well. I'm still really suspicious of that. But I would go more for the front face attached patch than anything. I don't think TBS has one. VAS doesn't make one. TrueRC doesn't make one that are attached. But if I was going to pick out of those three manufacturers for ones that you screw on, I would pick TrueRC. I love TrueRC antennas. Absolutely do. I'm going to scroll down here real quick because Free Range Chicken, thank you very much, Free Range Chicken, for your $9.99 super chat. I appreciate you, Free Range Chicken. Free Range Chicken has also been a patron for a very, very long time. You've probably seen his name pop up in a few of my videos with the patron shouts. All right, let's see. More questions. Yeah, I assume we're still talking about the 250-gram quad. Maybe drop down to a 3-inch or 3.5 and throw a Thumb Pro on top. Yeah, 3.5 with a Thumb Pro with the right weight is pretty reasonable. The Runcam 5 Orange tends to be just a little too big for that. Like it was too big for my 3-inch. I can carry it. Don't get me wrong, it can carry it, but it's just too much space on the top plate. So a Thumb Pro would be good though if you're comfortable with a Thumb Pro's FOV. Yeah, Byron Lewis, a freestyle 2-inch Caddx is bad if not naked. The Cinerace 20 for a whoop 2-inch works, but don't expect acro. I have a Cinerace 20 that is analog, and it still doesn't fly very well. It's still too heavy for a 2-inch quad. And it's got 5-blade props, which should be making a little bit more thrust, even though they're in ducts. But it still doesn't fly very good. So definitely a naked Vista if you're going to do that on anything less than, I would say, a 3-inch for sure. Yeah. All right. Without components, quad frames are basically shurikens. That's been my idea exactly. I just want to get to a point where people will send me quad frames that I can throw at things and not need them for review. Because I want to stick them in walls. Every time I see one like this, I totally want to chuck this into a cardboard box like a shuriken. Every time. Every time. Totally agree. AJSR71, I bought some bats for my 7-inch Z6S LiPo. So 7-inch Z6S LiPo, 3300 mod 22. Yeah, all that stuff. Soft case battery with the EC5 connector. I plan on cutting off the EC5 and putting on an XT60. Any objections? No. No objections. It's totally fine to cut off the EC5 and put on an XT60. The thing I would do, though, is I would cut the XT60 very close to the end, the XT60 lead, right? So very close to the XT60 connector, and I would cut one wire at a time, not both. Don't cut both. Don't cut one and then cut the other and leave them both open. Cut one and then hold it out of the way. Solder your XT60 onto that one side. Put your heat shrink on it. Cut the other and then solder the other side. I would never leave both sides exposed at once in any circumstance because shorting those two is the quickest way to a shorted cell, which is the quickest way to a house fire. It's different when you're doing like a balance plug, and even with a balance plug, I'll do one wire at a time. I'll take one wire out and put it back in the connector. So one at a time, and you will be much safer. All right. Orlog, I'm late, but I made it. What's up, man? What's up, man? He's hanging out in the Discord a lot lately. I always enjoy seeing Orlog. All right. Remind me to build. Get a Creality S1 and a Sonic Pad. The Sonic Pad is really cool, and if you haven't seen how the Sonic Pad works and you want to take advice from someone in FPV, Mads Tech did a really, really good video on the Sonic Pad. It's a little long, but you know I have an affinity for making long videos. I get told that a whole lot. But he got the Sonic Pad from Creality, and he has some Creality printers. And it is amazing what the Sonic Pad can do for you with all of the extra functions you get from Clipper, because it runs Clipper, which is a different way of controlling the units. Anyway, it's amazing what a difference that makes in print quality and speed. It is a little bit expensive. Not gonna lie, I think it's a couple $100, so you'd be out like $500 for both. But it's a good combo. It's a really good combo. Christopher Tilley, I was considering the Soval. Yeah, Sovals are good machines. They are very good machines. Creality just has a lot of available parts. Like if you go to Creality's site for the S1, not just the S1, but any of their stuff, you can like get direct drive conversions, you can get new extruder ends, you can get a ton of stuff. They're just really, really well supported. The Sovals are really good machines though. So you can't go wrong with a Soval, but if you wanted to go a little lower end, you can go Creality. Vitrafly, what's up, Vitrafly? Zang. Hope I didn't wait too long to show that because, oh man, I'm like 7 minutes behind in comments. Holy crap. Holy crap. I gotta catch up. I gotta catch up. I'm just gonna scroll down here and make sure I'm not missing any of the cues for the BYOQ. Oh man. AUD, is your FPV, or yeah, I said my own name. Why am I reading my own name? I have a face. Is your 2-inch build going to be 1S? Lately, I see a lot of these 2-inch 1S builds with 1002s or 1003s. What do you think about it? I like 1S, so my Odonata is going to be 1S, and I have 1002s on it, and it's going to be a 1S quad with 45 millimeter props. So I like that. This 2-inch will likely have a dual tune for 1S and 2S, and I can switch between them. It just depends on what I want to do. I'm going to run three blade props on it. And the KV I'm picking for the motors is going to lean itself more toward 2S. I feel like 2S gives me more power headroom, obviously. A little more pack consistency. 1S dips down quite a bit whenever you get to the lower end of the 1S, and there's nothing you can do about it. But on a quad like that with 2S, it's going to have more consistency through the pack, kind of like the difference in 4S and 6S on big quads. You just have more voltage to work with, so the sag is less, but it's a little bit more weight. So it is a trade-off. But I will probably go 2S and still give it a tune to be able to do 1S. And I'll put an XT30 on there, and I have both 1S and 2S with XT30. So I'll just switch them around as I see fit. All right. Fun per volt. I want to see dual cameras with picture-in-picture in the goggle. That's awesome. I thought about, in fact, I made a whole video about, or I just never released it, and it's probably never going to get released. I made a whole video about having a camera on the goggles and picturing that with what is on your quad, so that when you're standing there, wherever you may be, you can see around you while you're also flying. I did a whole thing where I added all of that stuff, but determined it was not a good idea because people would be walking around with their goggles on, looking through the camera, running into things, potentially hazardous to their health. And I thought not. I thought not do that. I did not do that. Orlock, I wasn't going to name you out specifically to be the Mjolnir Pro guy, but you are the Mjolnir Pro guy. If you have any questions about if the Mjolnir Pro is any good, ask Orlock, or Orlock is Orlock. Orlock, it starts with an X. I always do that. Or go hit up the Discord where he hangs out, and he can tell you all about his experience with Mjolnirs. All right. Byron Lewis. Did you do a tune on the Darwin 129? Upgraded analog cam and looks flies great, but there are, yeah, significant jello. It's really, really bad. It's the frame, buddy. That frame is it's just not good. If all you want to do is cruise and you care nothing for the footage, it's fine. I do have a tune for it. If you would like to try it, you are more than welcome to try it. I am happy to provide the CLI dump for you. I haven't flown it enough since the last time. You'll notice every time it's back there, you can't see it because my camera's too low, but it still has a bent prop. Because last time I took it out, I destroyed a GoPro, and I flipped it over about 18,000 times, and it just fell out of the air and started tumbling and doing things that were completely unrelated to the tune because it flew fine with the tune until I put some other stuff on it. It's totally my fault, but I haven't got back around to it. But if you would like to experiment with the tune, I do have it. I'll be happy to give it to you. What's up, oh? All right. More questions. Mouse of Madness. I shorted a tiny 2S LiPo working on an RC car, and thankfully no fire. But do not ever risk touching the wires. A lot of smoke. Yeah, 2S. Luckily it was just 2S. But if it's an RC car, it's a big 2S. I have a bunch of like 5200 Mod 2Ss laying around from that stuff. Yeah. You must be asking about my my wall back there, King Kick the channel. Yeah, it is 3M hooks and yes, tiny little bungee cords. That's exactly what I use, the 3M hooks and bungee cords, because I am not rich enough to own a house. So I am renting this house and there shall not be any holes in the walls where my quads go. Unfortunately. But hopefully next year I will be remediating that and have a better studio where I can kind of do what I want with it. Hopefully. We'll see. We'll see if I am one of those many people who still have student loans that make their life really hard to start. So I'm one of those. Prop Lord FPV, what's up, man? Jackson RC Aviation, good to see you. All right, I think I'm almost caught up again. Maybe I'm caught up. Maybe I'm not. Vitrafly, I commend you for taking all these questions. My question for you is, how are you? Well, Vitrafly, thank you. Vitrafly is always so kind. He's a very kind individual. If you didn't know that about Vitrafly, he's a very kind and caring individual. Thank you, Vitrafly. I am good. I am incredibly stressed out. I'm incredibly stressed out. That's the truth. I'm incredibly stressed out. My son's 5th birthday was last weekend. Our life totally changed when my daughter was diagnosed with diabetes, and we're still working through all that. And things are crazy. Work is crazy. Yeah, so things are really stressful. But I appreciate you, man. I really appreciate you asking, taking the time to check on me. It's very nice of you. All right. More questions. I am scrolling through. Oh, I think I hit the end. I hit the end of the questions. I hit the end of the comments. It didn't load another page. I am amazed. Okay. So now if you have any more questions, go ahead and post them because I will see them now. Now, if you post 30 of them at a time, it'll be really hard, but I'll try. I'll keep trying. Benadryl Bill. Yo, Bacon. What's up, Benadryl Bill? Benadryl Bill. I like that. What's up, FPV? I have the latest firmware on my goggles and the Air Unit can't get the HD OSD to work. And I have to reboot my goggles after the switch. After the switch, between the Air Unit and the HDO and the O3. Is that on firmware on goggles and Air Unit, I get the HD OSD to work. You'll always have to do the whole reboot thing for the switch. The HD OSD, I haven't looked into the HD OSD function. I know Bardwell made a video about doing the HD OSD. I know that he did, but I have not tried it on any of my stuff. I'll probably get around to doing that this weekend, though. Odd. Still trying to figure out where to use my 1003 22 kV. It's 3:29 a.m. from Europe. I totally want to do these on the weekend for you guys. I'm sorry that it's so late and that you're up. And it's on what would probably be a Thursday for you. I'm so sorry. I promise at some point I'll do a Saturday one at a reasonable time that you won't have to stay up to the middle of the night to see. But 1003's 22,000 kV, you could totally 1S that. You could totally 1S that on 22,000 kV. You're going to be more in like a 65 or what would that be? Props for a 65 to 75 millimeter frame. So 40 millimeter, 35 millimeter props somewhere in there. Probably a 22,000 kV 1S. So yeah, watts between Vista and O3. You absolutely have to rebind every time. You have to reboot and rebind every time. There's still no fix for the V2s on that. Unfortunately, I wish there were. I redo that 8 or 9 times every time I go fly. I have to rebind everything because I switch back and forth while one thing's cooling off. Joseph LaFleur, how did you feel when Bardwell showed your video on the stream? I actually didn't even catch it. Somebody had to tell me. I was outside watching my kids play on their scooters, and I had my in-laws in town from my son's birthday this past weekend because he did it on Monday, and I actually had no idea it happened. Somebody wrote me. So I was incredibly thankful that he did. I was super surprised that he had not done a video on that exact thing. In fact, I figured that he had, but it was awesome that he showed it. And I always appreciate Bardwell. He's actually on my, he's a huge supporter of the channel. And it's great to see that from another content creator. It really goes to show that in FPV, there's not competition between people making content. We're all just trying to help everybody and we can all work together at it. And he super hugely supports the channel. And I am incredibly thankful for JB because if it were not for him, I would not have ever built my first quads and had the inspiration to help others do the same. So super great guy. King Kiek. Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a huge life change. You know, if you didn't know, I had mentioned it, but if you're just catching the stream, she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in January. So it's been a few months of figuring it all out. It's a whole lot of change for a little girl. She's gonna be 11 this year. So yeah, a whole new world of things. What's up, Anarchy? I love your username. Every time I see your username in a comment, Anarchy with an R key as the icon. Perfect. Just perfect. Absolutely perfect. I wish I had thought of that. I'm always a little jealous of the fact that you are using it and I did not catch it. I should have done it. Okay, if you say so. Insomnia. Odd he apparently does not like to sleep. It's fine if that's how you live your life. If you live your life that kind of dangerous, then yeah, I guess I will do my best to support you in it. If that's what you're asking me to do. What's up, Michael Rogers? Welcome to the chat. I always love Michael's comments too. He leaves such thorough and thoughtful comments every time on my videos. I love replying to them. Would like to see your Quadmula 3 with the Skystars ESC and O3 installed. Listen, this one right here. This is what the video this week is going to be about. It's going to be about this because I built it and I showed it and I said, do you like 3-inch freestyle basically in the last video? But now it's time. I've flown it enough. I have crashed it enough. It is time to finally revisit it and tell you what I actually think about the build as a whole. So that is going to be this week's video. Spoilers. If you don't like that video, you might just skip this Saturday because that's going to be the one. One Vision aerial. Yeah, I got to watch that blood sugar, man. Yeah, and so for my son's birthday, she had 2 pieces of pie where we went to eat, and she said it was sugar-free pie. It was no sugar added pie. So 100 carbs wrong. And her blood sugar shot up and her meter starts going off. And yeah, it's a constant thing. It's hard with kids because especially kids that aren't used to having to watch that kind of stuff. It's a whole life change, having to think about food totally differently. And it's not that it's bad. I mean, I think that I know personally I could stand thinking about food a little bit differently. And I wish that I had learned that at a younger age. She's just being forced to. So it is pretty hard. Brundlefly, type 1 diabetic, and I feel so bad. Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's tough for her. It really, really is. She's getting better though. We have a Dexcom, so she has a constant glucose monitor and stuff, and it is really, really helping. So I'm getting to learn a lot about the human body and the endocrine system. I'm not opposed to learning things. I like to learn things. What's up, Chris Thorney? And Arkey also 3:30 a.m. Can't get no sleep. Well, I'll put you to sleep, buddy. Just keep watching. You keep watching this face, I guarantee you'll fall asleep. You'll get all kinds of bored. It'll happen. All right. Chris Thorney. Frame finally arrived the other day, but I already brought 2 from an Aussie seller. Ended up being V2. Now I have 2 XAOS 35 V2s and 2 XAOS 35 O3s. They're completely different design. Like, how completely different do you mean? Is it the camera cage? I know the camera cage attachment is probably different than the camera cage, but like the arm design and stuff should be the same, right? Should be. Is it not? Is it not on those? I actually, Chow, if you're hanging out in the Discord, Chow FPV is sending me an AOS frame that he is taking apart. So I'm going to have an AOS frame to try, and we'll see where that goes. I've flown one a few times, but, building one, I'm going to build one to my spec and see what I think of it, finally. It's about time. Roger. I have not flown 5.5 props on the Demibot because I do not own a Demibot. Unfortunately, I don't. I would love to try Bot's frame because Bot Grinder, again, awesome dude. Bot Grinder is one of my favorites. But I don't own his frame because I don't feel like I bash hard enough to be worthy of his frame. I don't bando bash. Like, that dude, he beats the crap out of things. And I don't beat that much crap out of things. So I feel like me buying his frame is taking his frame away from someone who will actually bash it like it's meant to be bashed. Yeah. I don't have one. I would love to try it though. It's just going to be lower on my list because I don't feel like that build is going to be more toward my style. My style is more snappy. But if I want a bando bash, if I ever find a good bando, by God, I will build a Demibot, and that will be it. What are a good set of motors and AIO for a 3-inch, Joseph LaFleur? So an AIO for a 3-inch, it depends on the 3-inch frame. I'm going to pull my quad out again. What I have in here is a Skystars 55 amp stack with an F7. So it's their F7 HD Pro flight controller, which is a 20x20 flight controller. If you have a 20x20, you can get some really nice Mamba 20x20 stacks that are 35 or 40 amp. Those would probably cover you in most 3-inch builds. As far as the motors go, I have 2004 motors on mine, which are probably a little bit overkill. I like a shorter motor on my T-mount props because that way the torque, whenever you hit a prop on something, is a little bit lower on the shaft, and you're less likely to bend a shaft. Maybe slightly less likely, but still less likely. 1507s are good. I don't like the 1404 size motor for 3-inch. I just feel like it's underpowered, especially if you're running tri-blade props. A lot of people do it though, but 1507s are good. I think RC and Power makes a good 1507. I like the 2004s, but they're probably a little big. But something in between those two is probably a good bet for you on 3-inch with plenty of power. If you just want to cruise around though, or you're looking for long range, a 1404 is basically the standard for that size. All right, Chris Thorny, the frame is longer. We're talking about the AOS 5 V2 O3. The arms are different. Nothing will attach. The V2, I broke an arm on, already had 3 motor holes. The O3 looks like it's more reinforced there now. I didn't think he changed that much stuff for the O3 version, but props to him if he did, if he noticed some issues and changed them in the O3 version. I would have liked to seen it be a V3 if they were going to make that many changes, because V3 and O3 would kind of go together rather than V2, but I thought that most of like the arms and everything would still fit on the O3. Page Yoda 777. Any thoughts on the Apex Micro 3 or 4? The Apex Micro is a great frame. It is absolutely a great frame. The entire Apex line is great frames. I have a friend that built an Apex Micro and did a 3.5 build, I believe. So he did it on the 4-inch frame, and it was a really nice quad. He crashed it into the ground and destroyed a bunch of motors, but the frame came out just fine. So it is a great frame option. I like the Quadmula one just because I like the Quadmula one. I happen to like the arm interlock designs and the fact that I can put an O3 Air Unit in it with soft mounting. That's why I picked the Quadmula that I picked. But the Apex 3 or 4-inch are terrific frames. Roger, is it Rogor or Rajor? I don't know. My experience is that 5.5 inch props are very floaty, and they would be because it changes your thrust to weight ratio. It's kind of like how a toothpick can feel floaty because the thrust to weight's so high. So as you go up to 5.5 inch props, unless you go down on pitch, which I think is the idea behind the 5.5 inch props, is that you can sling longer props at lower pitch with less drag and get more responsiveness out of the motor, even for the larger prop size. But if you're doing it pitch for pitch, I can imagine it does feel floaty. I kind of want to get an AOS 5.5 so I can try 5.5 inch props out just to see. I have tried some oversized props on other frames where they fit, and I kind of feel the same way about it. Unless you go lower down on pitch, they kind of do feel floaty. Chris Thorny, I want a Demibot on 8S. Bardwell did that Rotor Riot video on 8S, and I haven't watched it. It's in my to-watch list. I need to go watch that. After the stream, I will go watch that. Because, I'm interested to see what 8S does. I know what 8S does to ground vehicles, so I can imagine what it's going to do to a quad. Just at some point, you start defeating the purpose when the packs are so wide because they have so many cells. I don't know what that point is, but it could be above 8S, I suppose. Did the Roger, I did the AM32 stack for my AOS 3.5 and it's a success. Yeah, the AM32 stack is good. I haven't picked one up. I want to try one of their AM32s, the Skystars. It's basically the exact same, just with the AM32 ESC. The stack has been good. I do have that flight controller issue that I was talking about earlier in the stream where I have the yaw twitch because the gyro's sticky. But I don't think that's the board's fault. I did crash it pretty severely a few times. I'm pretty sure it's my fault. So I'm not going to chalk that one up to being a Skystars problem. What's up, FPV? Yeah, off to work you go. Thank you, man. Thanks for checking in. Sorry you got to go to work. That's never fun. The fun part's getting the paycheck, not going to work. Let's see. An R-Key. I am looking for a 5-inch replacement frame that has enough space for my HDZero Freestyle 1 watt, 1950T motors. I've seen the EOS 5, but that stupid 3-bolt mount pattern for the motors just kills my OCD. Yeah, he made that decision for some specific reasons, but I totally get it. There are a ton of really good freestyle frames that will fit your 1 watt transmitter. I'm guessing by the fact that you have 1950T motors, though, you're probably looking for something pretty fast. So I assume that you're going to want something lighter. And it depends on the stack. I'll say I've been testing the light Quadmula frame, so the F5 Split Mini. It's about 100. The whole build is about 100 grams lighter than my regular Siren F5 Split. And that weight difference is pretty major. And I don't have any real resonance problems out of the frame, even though it's lighter. The design is pretty well for the resonance characteristics. And I bet that thing would freaking stomp on 1950s KVT motors. So it's a thought, and it would absolutely fit the Freestyle VTX in the back. All right. It's time for another drink of my diet soda. Today, it is Cherry Coca-Cola Zero. Not a sponsor, because no. All right. And Arky says, I'll go 8S when I build a Beast Class quad. I want a Beast Class quad. I can't justify the cost of a Beast Class quad. If anyone would ever send me the parts for a Beast Class quad to build, I would drop everything else off my bench to build it. But I can't do that kind of money for a quad build. It's pretty crazy. Mike Bergman, thank you for a $5 super chat. Hey, Mike, how you doing? Good to see you, Mike. I appreciate you, Mike. I'm going to say Mike as many times as I can, Mike. I said it more than 5 times. I was going to say it a time $1, so it worked out. But thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate it. AJSR71, I'm building a 3.5 inch right now, and I have RCM Power GTS V3 2107 plus 1980 kV motors coming. Are these too big? Yes. Yes, they are absolutely too big. For one, they probably will not mount up to the frame. 2107s are generally too large for a 3.5. That's more of a 5 to 5.5 to. It's a little small for the 6-inch side, but yes, it's unlikely they're going to mount up, and they're going to be too large, and they're going to pull a whole lot of amps. For a 3.5-inch, like the 2004s that I have, they're smaller, and it's going to be hard to tell, but the mounting pattern is smaller. So I think this is a 16 millimeter mounting pattern for this size motor, where the larger ones, the full size motors, are 19 millimeter. So I know the GTS V3 is going to be a 19 millimeter mounting pattern because I have some on a quad back there. I don't think you're going to be able to mount those up to your 3.5-inch frame, unfortunately. Odd. Is my Quadmula F3 sub 250 grams? No, it is not. I have seen Murder's FPV build of the F3. He did 1604s on 6S, GMB 380. He managed to stay sub 250. Mine is not targeted at that. So mine is 248 grams dry with no pack. But I built mine specifically for the thrust to weight ratio of a 5-inch quad. So mine is just targeted at something different. I wanted mine to fly in a certain way, and 250 grams on that frame with the kind of thrust that I was looking at just wasn't going to be the right math for it. So I went over by a little bit. I'm a little under 300 grams all up, which is more than definitely more than Murders. Murders was trying to fit in that 250 gram limit for sure when he did his. What's up, Chris Mel FPV? Good to see you. Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Okay. Mike Birdman, leader of Cola. Okay, Farva. I love that movie. I love that movie. I need to go watch that movie again. Just order a large, Farva. No, I want a liter of cola. Now I can't get it out of my head. The next one to say shenanigans is going to get pistol whipped in the head. This is a place we'd like to go, Farva. Oh, shenanigans? Yeah. Oh, man. So great. So great. All right. Yeah, there we go. Chris Thorny, AOS 35 can mount a 9x9 or 12x12. So it must be 12x12 that mine are, because they're not 9x9. So I was off on 16x16. I think 16x16 is the low end of what a 5-inch prop motor mounts. So usually the 5-inch motors are between 16x16 and 19x19. And then normally the like 1404s, 15.0, those numbers are the 12x12s. Yeah, so yeah, it's probably a 12x12 you need, and the GTS V3 are going to be 19x19, unfortunately. Okay, Tico Snaps. Did I say that right? Tico Snaps. Any thoughts on Flyfish RC? Been seeing them a lot lately, and they seem new to the scene. So they are-ish, I think. They started out, from what I can tell, as a motor manufacturer selling motors, and I haven't ever had a chance to try their motors. I did write them a couple times about trying them, but I never heard anything back, so maybe someday. Their frame design is their first frame design. And for a first frame design, I would say that it is very well engineered. It is just, though, very heavy. It is a very heavy frame. It is probably perfect for some people. It is not one that I've ever tried just because it is so heavy. But I've heard a lot of good things about it. The Aventador, I think, is what it is, the Flyfish. It looks really well designed for a first stab. And it's just a heavy, well-made frame. Just, for Spang, which is typically what I fly, that would probably hit the ground a whole bunch of times, is all. But for a first stab at it, I'm really interested to see where they go from there, though. I'd like to see maybe a smaller version or a lighter version, more focused on other flight styles. Maybe a 7-inch would be cool, too. We'll see what they do. I haven't heard any plans from them, but I would also like to try their motors at some point. We'll see how that goes. But they seem like decent people. I've seen them on Facebook a whole lot, and they've always been helpful and responsive and polite. So good on them. Good on them for taking a stab at it. And Arky, how does everyone else feel about the 3-hole mount pattern for motors on the AOS frames? So what I'll say is you really only need 2. You only need 2 screws to hold a motor on appropriately without any resonance problems or wobble. In a properly designed frame, you only need 2. And that will keep both the rotational axis and the vibrating axis in line on the arm and attached. Now, if you lose one, then you are screwed, because obviously it's going to spin around on itself and tear out everything it can on the way there. With 3 screws, you are less likely to lose one and have a problem. I understand why Chris Rosser took the 3rd or the 4th screw out in that arm design. It really doesn't save much weight. It's mostly just for the fact the arcs that he was trying to create with the arm design. To keep the resonance characteristics where they were. It's really not a weight saving measure. It's not super critical that it doesn't have a 4th. I mean, I'm fine with it. I wouldn't not choose it because of that. But if you just really want 4 motor screws, it's not going to be a thing you like. But it should be totally fine. In theory, it's totally fine with just 2. 3 is just a safety feature, essentially. CBP, why does my drone wind up sporadically every time I snap yaw movement? It happens, my bind and fly and homemade drone. So wind up sporadically. Do you mean it acts as if you're giving it more throttle when you yaw? If that's what you mean, that's totally normal. And that is because yaw is a torque controlled axis, which means that 2 motors have to spin faster and the opposing 2 motors have to spin slower. So 2 motors are going in each direction at any given time on a quad. And if you're going to yaw in a certain direction, it speeds up the motors that are spinning in that direction to create a torque imbalance that makes the quad move in that axis. So those motors spinning up in that direction do cause some lift. And even though it's spinning down the other two motors, that usually still generates a net gain in thrust. So when you're making a yaw movement, you actually still need to do some throttle adjustment for the yaw movement. If I know I'm going to be doing something yaw heavy, if I'm going into a snap yaw move, I actually dip the throttle down so that I don't have a tendency to pop up during the yaw move. But totally normal if that's what you mean. If you mean like audibly, it sounds like it's throttling up in yaw moves, it might be something different. But if you mean that it starts to float upward as if you gave it throttle, that is pretty normal. Bitterroot FPV just got here. What's up, Bitterroot? He was out flying. We can grant him a pass for being out flying. You know, Chris Thorny. Shenanigans. You're going to get pistol whipped, man. That's the way it works. It has to happen now. It has to happen. All right. Let's go down here real quick. Have a super chat I need to read, but I'm so far down. One Vision Aerial. Let's have a live stream watch party of Super Troopers. You know what? I wonder if there's any way to accomplish that. I would totally do that. I'm totally down. If I could find a way to make that work, I'm down. I can't like play copyrighted content, but I'd be totally down for that. Absolutely. And Chris Thorny, 1404 are 9x9 usually. The 1406 and up are 12x12. 2004 you can find a 12x12, like my Emaxes. And they are super good for a heavy 3.5. Yep. Taller and thinner though, like a 16 or 14. Yeah, like 1507s are a good taller and thinner motor. Like I said, on my 2004s, I bought them specifically because I wanted a shorter motor, because this is going to be a freestyle quad. And I just don't want to bend bells, or I don't want to bend shafts on the bells. So I got shorter ones so that the moment arm of the bending isn't as terrible. But 1507 is actually pretty good. And then I believe T-Motor has a good 16 millimeter motor. It's a good option for that too. So what's up, Slickback? $5 super chat. Thank you very much. If I was to buy all gear for FPV with goggles 2, how much would that all add up to approximately? I've got 50 hours plus in liftoff. Right now I'm deciding on goggles 2 or V2. So I can tell you pretty handily, because I actually just helped someone work through this exact same situation for the goggles V2 with basically the same quad as my budget build, them building it themselves, which is a little cheaper than if you go buy one. And it came out to right at $1,000 for charger, goggles, radio, quad, all of the accessories you need to get in the air other than the batteries themselves. Right at about $1,000. Now, if you go goggles 2, you're going to have a little more expense, because the goggles 2 are going to be $300-ish more expensive. I would say that for if you went goggles 2 and you went with a bind and fly quad, you're probably looking at $1,500. Probably about $1,500 out the door for your first quad, all the stuff you need, plus good equipment to back it up, good radio, good chargers, all that stuff. If you're talking about the V2 goggles, you could probably come down on that price by $200 to $300, but you're still in the $1,200 to $1,300 range. That's what I would say is pretty reasonable. If you build it yourself with the V2s, you can get into the $1,000 range, or right over $1,000 range. And R-Key, what are the props in view like on the Quadmula? In view, they absolutely are. All of my Quadmula frames have props in view. It doesn't bother me. I'm not one of those people that minds props in view on flight footage, but yeah, definitely. AJSR71, cheers, bacon for $20. Thank you very much, AJSR71. I appreciate you. I appreciate you very much. All of this super chat money goes directly back into the channel to buy stupid things. This was sent to me, but I buy stupid things, stupid ideas. That's what I like to do. The stupid things so you don't have to. And that's where 100% of the money goes back to. I actually net a pretty large loss on this stuff, if you'd be so surprised. All right. Thank you very much, AJSR71. I really appreciate you. Let's see. Let's see who's got the next cue for the BYOQ. Let us see. All right. Bork says you can watch movies on Discord. Yeah, you can. You totally can. Totally can. What I am wondering is if I can do a channel member and patron special watch party that's not publicly available where I could watch it. And I could do like different movies in them, maybe. I could do one publicly and then one with the patrons and have like a smaller group chat, which would be kind of cool about the movie. I'm trying to figure out if I can do that. If I can do that, it'd be totally cool. Because, yeah. The patrons are almost to a point. They're just like, okay, so Patreon took away the whole thing where you have goals. Like when you get to a certain subscriber count, you get goals. Anyway, I had set the goal that when I get to 40 patrons, I would do a video or a live stream in a bacon suit. And they took that away. But it is so close. I'm actually still going to honor it, even though they took away the goal thing in Patreon. When I get to 40 on there will be a bacon suit. I'm going to wear a bacon suit. So it's going to happen. It won't happen during a movie, though. But there may also be a movie thing. That'd be really cool. Yeah, King Keck the channel. Watch out for that if you're doing inverted yaw spins. It's tough to do without throttling directly into the earth if you aren't careful. And that's exactly where I learned how to drop my throttle during yaw moves. Because I ran directly into the ground several times, a whole lot of times, until I learned that I had to drop throttle in yaw. So that's where I learned it. Good point. No problem, Magic Carpet Ride. I paused the stream too, mentally. My brain is paused. It feels paused. I'm still trying to catch up on comments. Let's see. King Kick the channel. Did Bacon Ninja say he only likes small shafts? LOL. See, you still have to appreciate the small shafts. I mean, you have to. It's not just about... Every size shaft matters. All shaft sizes are equally as important. Chris Thorney, can you put a link to your Discord? I'll join and throw you a pic of my broken arm on the OS5V2, and I can show you the difference. Oh, yeah, perfect. Absolutely, that'd be great. My Discord join link should be in the video description of this video, kind of toward the bottom, if you don't have it. Also, if you want to find it in a different way without scrolling down, if you go to my website, which is letsgetgreasy.com, there is a link on the homepage. If you scroll under my picture, it says join the Discord. That'll get you there too. So... All right. Yeah, King Keck agrees. Of at least $1,500 for anyone getting into FPV, especially if they're getting into FPV digitally. If you get into FPV digitally, you will 100% spend every penny of that. Even analog is going to come close. So, man, Mike Bergman. All kinds of great comments that I don't want to read on the live stream. Yeah, I'm really enjoying your little interpersonal conversations here as I'm reading through. It's getting a little weird. I'm going to say it's getting a little weird and pretty personal. Roger, and 6K later will still be pouring money into it. Need at least 4 quads and backup parts for 10. It's an endless money pit. It's an endless money pit. But if you enjoy it, it's a worthwhile money pit. Because at the end of the day, we all just want to have fun and enjoy this crazy, stupid thing that we all do. Yeah. Thank you, OOOOOOO. Come hang out in the Bacon Corner Discord. Thank you very much, sir. That is the link to it if you didn't get it from my webpage or the description. Thank you. Mike Bergman, yes, I am task saturated. I'm trying. I'm trying so hard to keep up with the chat. I don't want to miss anybody's stuff because I feel so bad. The other live streams that I've done, I have missed so many things. So many things. And I don't want to miss all the good stuff you guys are saying in here. And even if it's a little bit, you know, a little personal between you and some of the other people in the chat, Mike, it's still interesting to read. All right. See you later, Rotor Geek. Peace, man. All shafts do matter indeed, 8-Pit. Absolutely. Mike Birdman, I made an O3 250 today, and I absolutely love it. I would love to try the 250 build. Tommy Tabahia knows what he's doing. Absolutely knows what he's doing. And I watched a lot of content about the 250. If there's one 250-gram 5-inch quad that's worthwhile, it's that one. An O3 in it would be amazing, because that cuts out the need for any camera on top. And if it still sticks in the 250-gram weight limit, I'm wondering what the flight time might be like, though. I wonder if you lose any flight time for having an O3 versus any of the other build methods. And I wonder if oh my god, like the store is going to have an O3 version that you can just purchase. It'd be pretty cool. Not the first time I've heard that, Bacon Ninja. Yeah. I'm sure it's not, Mike. I will tell you, though, that at least this time it's outside of legal proceedings. There are no consequences. Well, there are, but, you know. Does anyone get into FTP and not, or FTP? Why did I say FTP? I think I'm at work. I'm not working on file transfer protocols right now. Does anyone get into FPV? That's the proper acronym. And not immediately want another quad? No. No. If they get into FPV and they don't immediately want another quad, then they didn't enjoy the first quad. If you get into FPV and you don't immediately have the itch to own more FPV equipment, then you're probably not enjoying FPV enough. Because that is it. I mean, most all of us, I would say, that hang out in the Discord and I see you on live streams, I would say we all got the itch pretty quick. It wasn't one of those things that snuck up on us and 3 months later we decided we needed to spend every extra penny we had. No, it's fast. It is real fast. Chris Thorny tried to join, and I'm on Discord and other tabs, but it joined as a guest. I don't know, Chris. I don't know. It should work. If you're a guest, you can be my guest. I didn't know that I could have it join as guest. I guess it's because they didn't take your login. It's probably a cookie setting. Those pesky cookies. Pesky cookies. What's up, H2O? A little late, but that's fine. That's fine. We probably got another 25, 30 minutes left in the stream. And we'll hit 2 hours. And I feel like I just started doing this 5 minutes ago. So, yeah. Like, I seriously did not realize it was after 9 o'clock already. Fun per volt. There's a new brand of motors called Peyronie's. Shaft comes pre-bent. I mean, if it works for you, you know, maybe some. Okay, question though: if the shaft is pre-bent, do you buy it in like left and right directionality so that you can have equally bent shafts on opposite sides of the quad to equal out the problem? Maybe that would be really functional. I mean, who knows? Who knows? All right. Oh, so it was a Tommy Tabahia. They actually made an O3 250. Okay. Then that makes sense, Mike. I hadn't seen that. It makes total sense to me that they would. It's sad to hear that they might have rushed it and they, you know, missed some stuff. But Tommy's usually good at that. Everything I've seen him make has been, you know, really well done. But it is an update to it, so, you know, maybe. And you know, he's probably not alone in that. I think when the O3 came out, a lot of companies rushed to the O3, and some of the designs were a little questionable because there's no way they would have had enough time to really thoroughly test the O3 unless they had a lot of stuff from DJI previously before it ever released, which then it still wouldn't be too valid because the actual release equipment will be slightly different. So I think a lot of companies rushed into an O3 model. I would have expected that Tommy spent a lot of time on it though, but if it needs some work, maybe at least he's surely at least going to be good enough to add to it over time because he is to the 250 already. So I will go check that out in a minute, Chris, because it shouldn't be doing that to you. I'll check it out and see. Bitterroot, I'm thinking that the 250 would be good for long range. It probably would be. It runs 2004 motors as well. The efficiency of it, On 6S with a big enough pack, it could probably carry it, but you probably are going to find that you need tri-blade props to have the right thrust to weight ratio with a large pack, and the 2004 motors are going to have a hard time with tri-blade props, so you're going to run into efficiency problems. I would still say that something in a 6 or 7 inch with biblades is going to be more efficient and get you better flight time than a 250. But it also depends on your definition of long range. So if your definition of long range isn't many, many miles, then it's probably just fine. Let's see. Mouse of Madness. I preemptively wanted another quad. I threw in my own money towards getting a Beta FPV C X kit for Christmas, and before I even got to fly it, I'd already ordered a Media 65 to go with it. Hey, again, you can't have too many quads. It's not a problem. Having too many quads is not a valid problem. It's just not. Well, my therapist says otherwise, but I keep telling them that it's not a problem because it's not bothering me. It's not hurting me, right? It's not hurting me. I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. Even if I don't fly, I'm just staring at them. Tico snaps. Question. I get a bit of wobble sometimes at low throttle on my 5-inch and 2-inch when moving quickly, like on the end of a power looping. Is this normal? Any setting I need to adjust. So the end of a power loop. So I hit my mic again. I need to remove this. It's a new mic. I keep whacking it. Anyway, so power loop, right? You go through the power loop, you come up, and I'm guessing you have a problem when you're almost back in the line. What that problem is going to be is when you're applying throttle. So in a power loop, the way you normally think about it is that during the loop, you want to let off the throttle, right? So you go up and you give it throttle to punch upward and you bring it around and you cut the throttle at the top. And then you basically, you wait till you're almost 80% out of the loop to give it more throttle. But really, what should happen is that at the top, you should adjust your angle to be more in line with the arc of the power loop so that you get your quad where it needs to be, and you actually start applying throttle sooner. So what you don't want to do is have your quad fall in the power loop too flat, because if your quad falls flat, it's going to fall through dirty air, and I bet what you're experiencing is prop wash, which is the quad stalling in its own dirty air. But if you give the quad a little more angle, so you're coming in, this is your quad, right? And this is the battery side of the quad facing the ground in a power loop. And so you're coming out the top of a power loop. If you start giving it more angle as you get into the power loop about 3/4 of the way, and then you start giving it thrust, it'll actually push it forward instead of you trying to catch yourself at a flat angle, and you're going to have a lot less prop wash at the bottom of something like a power loop. I did not know that was a disease Fun Provolt. I might not have read it if I knew that was the case. You tricked me. You have tricked me, sir. All right. Humanoid FPV, what's up? Thank you for your appreciation of the channel. I appreciate you for watching. I really enjoy the channel. That's the sole reason that I have the channel, is that I just enjoy it, and I enjoy spending time with all of you on it, because it is a lot of fun. I am not a very social person in real life, so I get to be myself and have fun with you all via the internet, and it feels a whole lot safer. So I really enjoy this. It lets me be myself publicly. Thank you, Chris Thorny. I guess you were able to post. I will check those out at some point tonight after the stream. I'm going to have to go check on my kiddos when we get done here. But Mike Bergman says he just missed the Whoop VTX mounting, only 20x20 for the VTX area. That is kind of rough. Now that Walksnail has the V2, you can do a 20x20, but it would still really kill things like, obviously the O3 Air Unit. And what else would you want to put back there? You could put the HDZero Freestyle in there, but that's probably a little big for that anyway, right? It's probably a little wide. I would love to see more VTXs center around the 20x20, and we kind of standardize the rear mounting of VTXs. It won't ever happen. Too many manufacturers and too many board designs. But if that's not going to happen, then we have to have 20x20, 25x25, and 30x30 in every rear bay that we want to actually fly, basically. H2O, I got notification that by Monday I'll get my HDZero. Heck yeah, H2O. Heck yeah, man. I know they're working really hard to ship them out. And if you haven't seen it already, your new HDZero goggles will come with the V9 software on them. Just don't flash backwards to any of the V8 software. If you're going to flash them, flash something the V9 and above. It is publicly available from the DiviMath website, and you don't even really have to flash them if you don't want to. The V9 software has all the latest features in it, so there's really no point in you flashing it. Just make sure that whenever you're ever flashing them, you don't flash back to anything before V9 on your newly delivered HDZero goggles, or you could have a problem. Yeah, let's see. Dredger. I made the mistake of having all my quads in the same room when I was updating ELRS. Now the wife knows how many I actually have. Never, man. No. See, you've got to keep some in the car. You've got to keep some at work. You've got to keep some in the closet under things that she won't ever touch. Like, I don't know, find things that she hates to pick up. You got to keep some there. If you have a buddy's house, sometimes that is one of the best places to keep them. That's what I found. I hide a lot of my illegitimate drones at buddies' houses. Yeah. I can instantly envision you running around, King Click, with quads in the front yard making plane noises. And I cannot say that I've never done it, because I have. I have. It is fun. Fun per volt. I was given the choice, her or the quads. Miss that woman. Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm not going to dive off into estimating my assessment of how I would make that decision, because this is recorded on the internet and my wife has access to said internet. So I am not going to incriminate myself by even making an effort to say what my answer would be to that question. Orlock, did somebody say small shafts? Yes, we did. It must have been like your bat signal. Interesting. All right. And Arkey, what's the resonance like on Botgrinder's 5-inch frame? I asked him and he said it's specifically designed to handle the 1 watt. The resonance like, and you asked him is, okay, yes, because he flies HDZero. He's actually like totally converted to HDZero, which I never thought I'd see Botgrinder convert to digital, but by God, HDZero got him. The resonance on the frame, I have seen some resonance graphs. It is not like the cleanest thing I've ever seen in the world, because it just wasn't designed to be the cleanest thing you'll ever see. But because it's so chunky and thick, a lot of the resonance is up higher, so it's not going to be in a place that impacts your ability to have clean flight. Although it's not the most noiseless frame I've ever seen, it will fly absolutely just fine. And it is very much specifically designed around carrying the HDZero 1 watt freestyle VTX. Yeah, Mike Bergman. I wish the O3 had 20x20 mounting in M2 instead of M1.6. I have yet to mount any O3 Air unit in any frame that I've tried it in, although I only have 2, but I have tried it in several frames, with the screw holes. I do not feel like that is a viable solution for holding the VTX in. Maybe that combined with 3M tape, maybe. I feel more comfortable with really good double-sided foam tape than I do with the screw holes. Just because M1.6 does not have enough thread grip to hold that VTX in a hard crash, and they don't go in deep enough for it. Now, if they were through holes, I might feel differently. But them not being through holes, just screw-in holes, yeah, I'm not about that. I am not about that mounting preference. It is not my thing. All right. More questions. Ciao! What's up? One of these days you got to do a stream before bedtime. No. I want you to watch me in bed. It's specifically why I picked this time slot, Chow. How does that make you feel? Chow is the one sending me an AOS frame to try. I am sending him a Quadmula frame to try, and I am trying one of his AOS frames. He told me it was already extra greasy, though, so I'm looking forward to licking that pre-used carbon fiber so that everyone on YouTube can complain at me about how licking carbon fiber is bad for your health. Orlock, you going to try the T-Motor G4HD and 60 amp ESC for FetTech Ultra? I'm thinking about trying it. I would totally try it because it's a T-Motor product, and it's not a FetTech ESC because, you know what they say about FetTech ESCs and fires. I would totally try it. I don't know that I'm going to get a chance to do it before summer. I might have to do it in summertime, but I really do need to try it. Next BYOQ question or comment. Well, it could be BYOC, but BYO, bring your own comment, or BYOS for bring your own shaft, because apparently this chat is super focused on shafts tonight of all sizes. It's very inclusive shaft chat. Shaft chat. Maybe that's an app. No. Nope. That's not an app we need. Nope. Don't do that. Don't want to find that in the App Store. I don't think Apple will approve it. Nope. Anarchy, Rufflet, illegitimate drones. Yes, my illegitimate drones belong in other houses. That's where I keep them. All right. I'm trying to move on from this whole app disaster I just created. It's still stuck in my head. Now I'm going to have to register a domain name and all kinds of stuff. Ugh. Anyway, all right, let's see. We'll get a few more in before the stream ends. Since Chow just got here, I have to... come on, Chow, you got to give me a question that I can't answer about tuning. You got to do that. Yeah, I don't know if this helps or means anything to anyone, but I sheared off 4 M1.6 screws on one of my O3 Air units, so the threads held that much at least. Well, that's good to know. That is helpful. And I guess physics, when we're talking about physics, the harder something is pulled on like a threaded screw, the more resistance it's going to find. So I guess that does make sense as long as they're fine enough threads. There's enough threads per inch to make up for the lack of surface area for the threads. But yeah, shearing them off. That's kind of exactly where I'm at. But I wonder if you use the M1.6 and you also use double stick tape underneath it, if that would be enough to keep them from shearing, or if they would still shear maybe 1 or 2 at a time and just be held on by the tape. I'm not sure, but I would love to see them put a 20x20 in it. It would be awesome. Or I know iFlight makes a plate, but if someone made a plate that went into the M1.6 screws and then converted to a 20x20, but allowed us to completely tighten up the M1.6 screws, I might feel better about it. I don't know. I'm not a fan of the M1.6 stuff. Brundlefly. Pants. Who wears pants here? Yeah. So we know what Brundlefly is doing in front of his device. Just letting the breeze blow, man. Way to go, Brundlefly. Freedom. Yes, I think you'd win that $1. That's exactly the point I was making, Fun Purple. I think you would win it. Mouse of Madness, I see your comment, and it is amazing. Your website that is shaft related, I think, is a terrific idea that you should start, and then you should send me a link to so I can follow its progress. However, I'm not going to bring that up as a comment on the stream, but I really think you have a good idea there. You should pursue it. Let's see. Let's see a few more. Okay. Chow sent me one. He says he doesn't know what the answer is. Here's a good one, and I have no clue what the answer is either. What is the most effective process to tune the dynamic idle PID controller? Okay, I have an answer. I have an answer for you, Chow. What you do is you set dynamic idle to 0, and then you go into the motors tab and you set the idle speed to 5%. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong, buddy. Tell me I'm wrong. Brundle FPV answered, I'm too task saturated for pants. We are not going to explore what tasks you may be, accomplishing, sir. But I do understand the sentiment. Yeah. In the attic FPV, I got the V1 DJI goggles. You never hear anything. Is the difference that big worth spending $700? Would that be Canadian dollars? The V1 goggles and the V2 goggles. So there is quite a difference in the V1 goggles. Let's pull up a web browser. No, I still have Creality stuff up. Okay. Let's look at the DJI V1 goggles. Let's remind ourselves what the specs are of these things. 1920 by 1080 screens. That's not the right ones. Let's see what the specs are. Well, here you go. Here's a good one. Here's what's the difference. This appears to be from an Oscar Liang article, which I trust Oscar very much in his opinion. Input voltage. Let's see how it compares. So, similarities and differences between the V1 and V2. They both have the same 2-inch LCD displays offering identical FOV. That's good. But the V2 has slightly higher resolution at 1440 by 810p. The V2 comes with an external battery, while the V1 doesn't, which really isn't that big a deal. The real things you get into here, the screen refresh rate is 120 hertz on the V1, 144 hertz on the V2. The live you get 720p essentially out of the view on the V1s, 810p on the V2s. Transmission frequency, the V1s only have 5.8. The V2s have dual band. I'll talk about why that may or may not be important in a second. The input voltage up to 17 volts, so 2 to 4S on the 1. 25.5 volts, 2 to 6S on the 2s. I still never run a 6S on my V2 goggles. But so the differences that I just listed, basically you're going to come up with a difference in resolution between 720p and 810p. That's going to be the biggest problem. If you plan on using the DJI remote controller, so the big black box controller, if you're talking about Vistas, or the controller 2, which is the smaller gray model if you're talking about using the O3 system, if you're going to use that, then the V1 system has a little bit of a disadvantage in that it doesn't have the 2.4 gigahertz band, but most pilots wind up taking their dual band antennas off of the V2s anyway and only running 5.8 gigahertz antennas. So I would say that point is mostly negated, especially if you don't plan on running the remote controller 2 or the original DJI remote controller for FPV stuff. If you don't plan on doing that, the resolution difference is noticeable, though. If we're talking about the Vista and the Link, it's going to send you a 720p stream anyway, so the V1s basically max out its resolution. If you're going to run the O3 system, though, the 810p really does look better. So if you plan on ever running the O3 system, the V2 is worth the difference. If you never plan on running the O3 system, the V1 can still be acceptable. I would say, though, that if anything gets depreciated first, it's obviously going to be the V1. And I anticipate, if you haven't seen MadTech's most recent video, I kind of agreed with him before he ever made it. I anticipate that we see the V1 and the V2 goggles kind of going by the wayside. DJI is no longer selling the V2 goggles new, so that's clearly a sign. The V1 goggles, if you can just find them for a really, really good price, or maybe you already own them and that's why you're asking about the difference, I would say if you already own them, you might skip it and just go for the Goggles Integra or the Goggles 2. If you don't already own a set and you can find a DJI V1 for like $100, it's probably worth it. Well, I don't know what that equates to in Canadian. But if you have to buy a brand new set and you want them to last for a little while, the V2s are probably a better bet, especially if you ever plan on running the O3 system. So I hope that overcomplicated answer gave you any more insight to the question. What's up, Streets FPV? What is good? Lots of things are good. Lots of things are good. Bacon is very good. It's very tasty. It's very, very good. All right, now I got to catch back up on the stuff. Streets FPV, I think he's saying G2s. Now, if you are saying G2s, if you're talking about the G2 goggles versus the V2 goggles, if you're talking about those two, then it's a vastly different answer. It's a vastly different answer. Yeah. All right. What about the TBS Source 1 V5? The idea is to put a 30 by 30 4-in-1 ESC and the HDZero 1 watt in the middle of the frame and a 20 by 20 FC in the back where the VTX would normally go. Totally doable. Totally doable. I'm trying to think of any other implications for that. The only problem I foresee that really isn't too big of a problem is that you're going to have to run the VTX antenna over the flight controller or under the flight controller. and that transmission system just tends to be a little more noisy than some others. I don't think you're going to wind up with any gyro noise out of it, especially if you're careful about how you route it, but totally doable in that frame. If you wanted to spend as little as possible on a decent frame, the Source 1 V5 is a good option. Oh man, we're really getting into some deep conversation here. Yeah, Streets, he said 700. Yeah, dude, does he mean goggle too? I'm hoping that I see another comment from him here that clarifies that, because definitely a different answer if we're talking about goggles 2 versus the V2. Yeah, Chow says route it well and wrap it in shielding if you have to. Yeah, that's where I would go. I'd be prepared to wrap the antenna in shielding if you're going to run the HDZero antenna coax over or under the flight controller. I'd be prepared to do something with shielding, and then probably heat shrink that shielding to keep it from shorting on anything. I would heat shrink shielding on to keep it from shorting on anything. That's where I'd go. Thank you very much, H2O, for a $5 super chat. I appreciate you, H2O, very, very much. I always see your comments as well in the video comments. You always leave me such nice stuff. Thank you very much. All right. Well, in the Attic FPV, hopefully that was the right answer, the V2 versus V1 instead of goggles 2 versus goggles V2. If you have a different question about it, because I'm about to wrap the stream up, definitely head over to the Discord. We can talk about it there. There are a lot of people running various combinations of things over at the Discord. So lots of different opinions we can get from other pilots. All right. King Keck, too late for all this advice now. Where were you guys when I was making them? Geez, on the Discord. We were on the Discord. That's where we were. Come join us. I really love the Discord. I'm on the Discord all the time. So, all right, guys. Well, that is basically it. We're out of time. It is 9:29. I have 1 minute left to this stream before I have to go wrangle my children and save my wife from them, because I'm sure they have her tied up somewhere. And, you know, I have to go rescue her from that. So, yeah. I'm going to wrap up now, but before I do that, one more last super chat from Bundlefly for $4.20. Sorry for hijacking your chat. Good stream. That's what happens when you take your pants off, Bundlefly. That's what happens when you come into a stream pantsless. So I can't expect any less. No, I appreciate you all for being here. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. If you have any other questions, head over to the Discord. We can talk about it there, or send me an email. That's fine too. Or just hit me up where you find me, leave a comment on a video. I will get around to it. I promise. Sometimes it takes me a little while, but the Discord is the best place. So hopefully I'll see some of you over there if I haven't already seen you there. And until next time, stay greasy, and I'll catch you later.